At the end of last year, I watched Matt Day's 2022 in review video, and I found it really inspiring listening to all of the things that inspired him throughout the year, and I thought this year I would make my own version of that video. I'm going to be talking about some of my favourite photo books from this year, my favourite cameras and lenses that I've used, my favourite photos that I've took and a small story behind them, and then I'm going to set myself some goals for 2024, and I think that putting that down in a video will help me to kind of keep accountability for it throughout the year. So I don't want to waste anyone's time, let's get started and talk about the photo books that have inspired me most this year. So the first book is possibly a book that has inspired me more than anything else I've ever read, and it is Photo Breakdowns by Greg Williams. Greg Williams is a photographer to many A-list celebrities and Hollywood stars, and in the book he basically just tells the story behind each shot, but the way that he describes how he went about getting the photograph just makes it so human and takes away a lot of the intimidation of the thought of photographing someone like that. And I feel like that is so inspirational to people like me that want to go out and photograph strangers and stuff like that, but feel like they can't approach them. Reading this book just fills me with a lot of confidence. And for every photograph, he talks about what camera he used and the settings he used, which I find very, very helpful. The next book is Alone Street by Gregory Crewdson. Gregory Crewdson uses a large format camera and he builds massive extravagant film sets basically just to take one photo, and that is so much dedication, but when you look at these photographs it really pays off. All of the pictures in the book are pretty creepy, mysterious, and lead you on to build your own narrative of what's going on, and I just really love that. I could literally spend hours flicking through this book. Next up, we have Sleeping by the Mississippi by Alex Soth. I'm a really big fan of Alex's work. I love the kind of large format, full body portraits that he takes. And for me, this book was perfect to read alongside doing his Magnum course, which I also completed this year, and having some images of his that I could flick through and look at in real life. I just found that really great. Tokyo Diary by Casper Kent. I can't really show you too much of this because a lot of the photos are quite explicit, and this is a book full of point and shoot style photographs of Casper's trips to Japan over the last 6 years. I'm a really big fan of the point and shoot style, so I really love this book. Town to Town by Niall McDiarmid. I actually only got this book for Christmas, but it's a book that I've wanted for a while. I'm a really big fan of Niall's work. Again, I love his full-length portraits, and I like the fact that he just goes and photographs strangers. This is something that I really want to do. I'm just working on plucking up the courage to go out and actually do it. And the last book is not actually a photo book, but it is a book by a photographer. It is Meaning in the Making by Sean Tucker. I absolutely love Sean's work. He was pretty much the reason why I made a YouTube channel, just from watching his YouTube channel. And the book is basically a summary of everything that he talks about on his YouTube channel, but just in one place. It focuses on the philosophical side of photography rather than kind of showing off a load of photos, which is something different and I find really nice. A lot of people talk about, what gear you need and kind of technique and stuff, but Sean talks a lot about why we take photos rather than the actual photos that we take, and I just love it, and honestly, it's probably the best book that I've ever read. So I would definitely recommend checking that out. Okay, so on to my favourite photos that I've taken this year. First up is this photo of Rou Reynolds, I don't 100% know how you say his name, from Enter Shikari. I've long been a fan of Enter Shikari since they brought out their first album, and this year I actually managed to meet Rou at a festival and take a portrait of him. It's not like technically the most amazing photograph that I've ever taken, but when I was a kid, like the thought of me going out and doing this would have made 15-year-old me so proud. So for me, this was like a huge point of my career, and it was a really important photograph for me to take. Next up, we have this photograph of my friend Thorn, who is an incredible fire breather. I went through like a little period a couple of years ago of experimenting a lot with multiple exposures and stuff like that. It was something that I experimented with, but I kind of just grew out of, and I've always wanted to go back and shoot more stuff like that. This fire shoot that we did was the perfect opportunity to do that, and we came up with some really cool shots, and this one is my favourite. It's actually inspired by a Yu-Gi-Oh card that I used to love when I was a kid, which was the polymerization card, I think it was called. But yeah, I really like this photograph and I'm very proud of it. And finally, we have this photograph of, it's basically just a man walking under a bridge. I went to Durham Lumiere with some friends this year and I was taking photos of all of the lights and the sculptures and stuff, and I got some photos that I really liked, but there was a point where I was stood waiting for kind of some of my friends to come up the stairs, and I turned around and I seen this guy underneath the bridge, and it was just like one of them moments where it was being at the right place at the right time. It's not really the kind of style of photo that I like to shoot, but there's just something about it that I feel like it's pretty mysterious and quite sinister, and I don't know, it was just one of them random shots that I took and I was like, that is my favourite photo of the night. Moving on to my favourite cameras, first up we have the Fujifilm GFX 50R. This is a camera that I've wanted for quite a long time, but it's always kind of been just out of my price range. I've never really kind of had the spare money lying around to justify buying it. But one came up for sale recently that was in my budget, and I just kind of felt like the stars had aligned, and I just thought, this is the opportunity, I'm going to buy it now. I love the photos that I've taken so far with this camera. There are plenty of things that I really dislike about this camera. I think hyping it up for so long in my head, I thought it was going to be something that it's not. But overall, I love this camera, and I'm very excited to shoot a lot more with it next year. I'm going to do a video on this camera. Probably the next video that I'm going to upload will be a video on my first impressions of the camera, so keep an eye out for that. Next up, we have the Instax Mini Neo. I've always wanted a Polaroid, but Polaroid prices are absolutely crazy, so I've settled for this Instax camera. It does everything that I want it to do. You get that kind of cool little credit card sized Polaroid coming out of it that you can easily like put in the back of a phone case or put in your wallet. I say that like I've done either of them things. I haven't. But it's great to kind of stick up on a wall or to kind of just keep or give to your friends. And yeah, there's not much to say about this. It's pretty cool. It's pretty reliable, unlike Polaroid cameras that I've used in the past. And it's not too expensive. I think it's pretty good value for money. Finally, we have the Fujifilm X100V. I'm not really going to talk about this because my entire channel is dedicated to the X100V, so there's nothing more that needs to be said. It's a perfect everyday carry camera, and that's about it. Moving on to favourite lenses, my number one lens is definitely the Mitacon 65mm 1.4 with the Fuji GFX. I think without this lens, I would not be interested in the GFX cameras. I've always loved the look of large format and medium format film, hence why some of my favourite photographers and my favourite books this year are people that shoot on large format and medium format. But this lens to me, being an f1.4 lens and being on a medium format sensor, really gives that kind of full body, shallow depth of field, everything in the background out of focus, but you can see like a lot more in the frame. So I mean, yeah, it's a fully manual lens. It doesn't even communicate with the camera to tell the camera the settings. But yeah, it seems pretty well built. It's very solid, it's very heavy, which is not great. It's got a smooth aperture ring, which is again not really great for photography because I keep knocking it and stuff, but overall a really beautiful lens, and it didn't even cost that much money, so I can't fault it in any way. The Sigma Art 28mm 1.4. This I honestly think is one of the most underrated lenses ever. First off, it is big and it is heavy, and it doesn't need to be this big and heavy. It's this big and heavy because it's got an adapter built into it, because it was one of the old Sigma Art lenses. But optically, it is absolutely incredible. For filming, it's perfect. The autofocus is perfect. Having 28mm, but having f1.4 so you can get the autofocus background, it's just great. Other than the size, I can't fault this lens at all. And finally, the Minolta 58mm 1.2. This is a really unique lens. It's very, very dreamy wide open at 1.2, and it's very, very sharp and just kind of optically amazing at f2. It's annoying that you can't go between 1.2 and f2. There's no like stop in between, which is pretty annoying because I reckon about like 1.6, 1.8, this lens would be incredible. I have actually done a complete video about this lens on my channel, so there's nothing really else that needs to be said on that. Lastly, I just want to talk about a few goals that I have for 2024. Goal number one is to make more YouTube content. I'm really happy with my progress on YouTube this year. I'm really grateful to everyone who has supported me this year, and I really want to give back by just creating a whole load more content for everyone to enjoy next year. Goal number 2 is to shoot more photography for myself. I shot a whole load of photos last year, but most of them were like kind of work for clients and stuff like that. I want to go out at least 1 day a week and I want to shoot some stuff for myself. Just walk around with my camera and, you know, enjoy the process of taking photos on digital and on film. I definitely want to shoot a lot more film this year. And finally, goal number 3 is to shoot more black and white. It's something that I've never really thought about going out and doing. I've sometimes put stuff in black and white when I can't get the colours right. Out of frustration, I will just go, oh, I'll just put it in black and white. But the more that I learn about black and white photography, the more YouTube videos I watch about black and white photography, I realised that it's a totally different way of shooting. And you can make any photo look good in black and white, but to get really great photos in black and white, I now know that it is a skill which I do not possess right now. But it's definitely a skill that I would like to learn. You know, learn how to work with light better, learn how to not rely on colour to hold my photographs up, and to focus more on, like, you know, the contrast, the composition, stuff like that. So yeah, I'm probably going to do like maybe a month or 2 where I only shoot black and white for myself, and I'm really excited to do that. I'm also going to do that on film too. I would love to hear if any of you guys have any goals for 2024. If you do, drop them in the comments below. I'd love to have a chat about it. I hope you have found some inspiration in this video, especially with the photo books. I feel like photo books are such an underrated way of discovering photography and finding inspiration. We live in a very digital world where everything's very instant, or like on Instagram and stuff, everything's so kind of disposable and gets forgotten about after a while. But having a bookshelf of photo books, I find, is always something that I always come back to. And there's certain photo books that I've looked at like 5 years ago, I didn't really get them, but looking back at them now, when I've learned more about photography, I find them really inspiring. So yeah, I mean, if you can get your hands on some photo books, whether it be buying them, borrowing them, or anything like that, thank you all so much for supporting me this year. I really appreciate every single view, every single like, and every single comment. And I can't wait to see where this YouTube journey takes me next year. Have the best 2024, and I will see you soon.